joining us. Thank you, Jen. Excellent. Welcome. This is co-authoring OER in LibreText. I am Suzanne Wakim, so sharing my information. What this session is going to be about is my role up at the top here with the Academic Senate of California Community Colleges OER Initiative, the mouthful, where I am a project monitor helping faculty groups from across the state build OER. And the goal here is to share some of the strategies with you, some of our successes, some of our lessons learned, so that if you're interested in building OER with a group of other faculty or other individuals of any type, you can do so. And the focus is going to be on co-authoring OER specifically in LibreText. And I'll talk about why that is our preferred platform in a couple of slides. I also want to introduce Jennifer Rogers, who is the outreach coordinator for LibreText, and she's going to be helping me answer any questions you have about the platform, because she's really got that depth of knowledge. My role is mostly I teach biology, and so I help faculty connect with each other. I do some OER training. I have enough LibreText training to help folks out, but Jennifer's really got the expertise for any in-depth questions that may come up. I also want to mention this presentation is adapted from a presentation by Shagun Kar, who is the other project facilitator for the ASCCC's OER initiative, and really my mentor. She helped me figure out how to do a lot of this stuff, so I want to make sure to acknowledge all the amazing work she's done and thank her for helping me learn this content. All right, onward. So a quick background on where this project started. As I mentioned, this is the Academic Senate of California Community Colleges OER initiative. It was funded in 2018 by the state legislature. And our mission is to reduce the cost of textbooks by doing a variety of things, helping faculty find OER, but most relevant to this topic is filling gaps in the OER landscape, right? So there's a lot of wonderful, wonderful resources, but there's also a lot of resources that are still needed. These include both textbook resources as well as homework systems, ancillaries, all of these other things that faculty need to really adopt a textbook for their class. Okay, so over the past 3 years, we have built 63 resources. This includes both textbooks and ancillaries, as I mentioned. So we've had lots of practice, and Shagun and I have facilitated all of these projects. In the beginning, the first year, we had faculty write individually. So one person would propose a book and they'd write it. And we really learned that having multiple people present, having multiple faculty write the book creates a much better resource, right? Having multiple eyes on it, multiple perspectives, all of these things creates a resource that's much more usable to a variety of different institutions. And so that's become a requirement of anybody that wants to write under our grant. They have to have 3 faculty from 3 different districts. We, as I mentioned, in the beginning, so we've done this for 3 years now. In the beginning, we let folks pick whatever platform they liked, and we quickly learned that different platforms have different benefits and disadvantages, but overall, LibreText is our preferred platform for a couple of reasons. One, I mentioned we're not just writing textbooks, we're also interested in creating those ancillaries and homework systems that faculty really needs to adopt the book, right? When we asked our folks, why aren't you using OER? A lot of times the answers would come back that they need that homework system. And LibreText has a lot of wonderful approaches, right? So they have H5P integrated. They also have, this is where Jennifer can help out. They've got lots of really great homeworky type things. It integrates with Canvas, so it meets that need. It also meets the needs of just creating a textbook, because the remixer, and I'll show you what that looks like in a minute, makes it really easy to just pull resources in so that folks don't have to cut and paste manually. The other main advantage that we found in our projects, and I think this was really the tipping point for us, is LibreText has been great about working with us to make sure the content is accessible. one of our goals is to ensure that anything created under our grant meets the highest standards of accessibility. And we've been working with accessibility experts in the state, one of which is now working for LibreText, which is wonderful. So we've had all of these kind of connections that's ensuring that what we create meets these high standards of accessibility. So those are the reasons that we settled on LibreText as our preferred platform for all of our projects. All right, so let's delve into how would you co-author a book using LibreText as a platform. And as I mentioned, this is really based on 3 years of experience helping faculty work together to create textbooks with folks across the state. So connecting people was a challenge, and what we learned very quickly is we need to train our faculty not just in OER content, so licensing, accessibility, all that sort of thing, but also in project management. So some of what I'm going to present here is basic project management, broad strokes, and how we've developed that to make it easy for faculty to work together, as easy as it can be. Turns out faculty are kind of a squirrely bunch, but that's why we love them. All right, getting started. Step one, you want to identify your collaborators. And as I mentioned, this is a grant that faculty apply for. And so that's our first step, is to make sure that they've identified multiple faculty from across different institutions. And one of the things we've recently started doing is creating a shared folder for them. So I use Google Drive because it's easy. You can use OneDrive. There's all sorts of places where you can create a folder just to house stuff. And I'm going to walk you through the sorts of things that we put in the folder, but you want to have something where everybody can get into it, everybody can edit, and we found Google or OneDrive to work really well. Let's look at the documents that are in the folder. One is you want to help folks develop an action plan, beginning with a timeline. So when are things going to happen? And create a tracking sheet, because it's really easy to say, yes, I'm going to write chapters 1 and 3, and it'll be done in September. See you in a few months. What we found is that you need to kind of continually touch base with the other collaborators, and I'll talk about a communication plan in a little bit. But you want to have very clearly laid out timelines. Now, in a couple of slides, I'm going to show you a feature that's new to me in LibreText, which is the Conductor, which I think may take over some of these aspects, which would be nice, having it in the platform. And Jennifer, and I see Delmar is here as well, hello, maybe can step in and talk about the Conductor a little bit. You don't have to, I'm not putting you on the spot. Either way, so either in Google Sheets or in the Conductor, wherever it might be, you want to have a very clear timeline laid out, and you want to build in buffers, because stuff happens, right? As we've learned in the past couple of years. So what you see here on this image is a really simple timeline. I like to keep things straightforward. I'm a big fan of color coding. So what we've got is our chapter titles on the left side here, the writer, so each person would pick which chapter they're writing. The timeline we set is they'd have the first draft done in February. Then in the next column is the person who will review the chapter. They'd have their review done in March, and so on, right? So we've built out this timeline for, I think, 6 months so far. When somebody has completed their piece of it, they highlight it in green so that we can see when things are getting done. If they've missed a due date, that gets highlighted in orange. This is less about public shaming and more about if the next reviewer is waiting for something, they know that it's still coming. And I've also asked folks, and I don't have it here, to actually write a date. So you're not done in March. When do you think you'll be done? So that we can kind of prepare the next round of reviewers. Because one of the things that'll happen is if the first person gets behind, that pushes the reviews behind, that pushes everything. And so it's really important to have a very clear timeline. And if things start falling behind, which they will, because stuff happens, to be very clear on when you're going to meet that target date. And thank you, Delmar. The link there is the Conductor link, and there's a session coming up, which I'll share in a few slides. It's a very cool new tool. All right, so that's the timeline, right? Step one, you're going to get together with your group, figure out who's writing what, who's reviewing what. And I should mention, we have multiple rounds of reviews, and it's really important to make sure that the multiple authors are reading everybody else's work very early in the process, because what we found is if you wait to review until the very end, everyone starts writing in a different direction, right? So some folks get really detailed, some folks tend to stay shallow and broad, and so the book ends up having a very unbalanced feel. And so we've started to build in reviews pretty much every couple of months. Make sure you're looking at everybody else's work and see how yours fits in. And so folks read all of the book, but they're responsible for a couple of chapters in kind of a greater detail. Also helps finding typos and that sort of thing. All right, next step. Now that you've figured out who's doing what and when they're doing it by, you want to start by looking for resources and organizing your resources. So this spreadsheet here is the course content catalog that was created by Quill West. And Quill's amazing. She's I think one of my heroes in this work, and this resource is fabulous. So click on it, and you want to download this. And what this does is really helps keep your search for OER organized. Because one of the things that tends to happen is you're looking for resources to bring into your book, and if you lose track of where the resource was, trying to backtrack and find it again is a mess, and then you can no longer use this great thing you found because you can't find it again. So the keys to this organizer, there's a lot of great columns, but the two most important columns is the location, so link to the resource, and track the license, because different licenses are compatible and some are not compatible. And so you'll want to make sure that whatever resources you're remixing have compatible licenses. If you haven't delved into the Creative Commons licenses, there's lots of really wonderful webinars to help you make sure that they are compatible. And one of the nice things I should mention as an aside about LibreText, and another one of the reasons it's our preferred platform, is that the way it's structured, each page of the book is a separate entity. And so when you're looking for compatible licenses, you only need to do that on a page-by-page scale rather than the entire book, which makes it a lot easier to try to remix content. The other part of this that I want to mention is if you have a book with lots of chapters, you'll want a separate tab for each chapter, because the goal here is to do an exhaustive search and find all the things, right? It's better to have it on this list and not use it than to, again, try to remember where was that thing that I found, I really could use it. And so what you want is everything so that you can pull it together later. And the reason the separate tabs is useful is if I'm looking for content for my chapter, but I find something for somebody else's chapter, I can clearly drop it in their tab and they know this is something for them. So that's just a really helpful strategy. Next step, you want to build a textbook framework. And this is an example of a book that we are starting to write, Intro to Arabic textbook. And this is created in Google Docs. When you're creating the overall framework, this is what I'm talking about here. It's just big picture, what are the names of the chapters, how many sections are going to be in each chapter. I prefer to do that in Google Docs so that we can all make comments and move things around easily. And it's a nice way to have those big global discussions where we can all comment on everybody else's work. This is important because you want your book to have a logical flow, right? One of the concerns that is often raised about OER resources is that they feel clunky, right? And that has to do with a lot of these little things, like having the book chapters all have similar sections, having the sections all be a similar length, right? Having the voice of the book be similar. And so when you're co-authoring a book, keeping all of that consistency can be challenging. And so you want to make sure you're having these discussions early and often. Right? So first you want to do is create your textbook framework, have in-depth discussions about how many chapters in each, how many sections in each chapter. And for example, here you can see, here's chapter 1, here's chapter 2, and every chapter is going to have the same 4 sections. Vocabulary, letters, culture, grammar, and dialogue reading, 5 sections. But every chapter has those same 5 sections, and so that'll feel really consistent for students. As I mentioned, one of the really great new resources is the Conductor, and I say new, it's new to me. If you want more information about this, I would encourage you to go to the session, what is that, tomorrow at same time this one started, whatever time that is for you, and learn about how to leverage this resource. I'm going to just do a quick introduction and kind of move on to the other project management components. But I think a lot of what I've been talking about that we've been doing in Google Docs can be done here, although I'm not sure if all of it can or not. So back to your project timeline. Up until this point, you can have been working entirely outside of LibreText, but now you want to make sure everybody has an account. I've got a link here to where you can ask folks to get an account. Make sure to use your EDU email so that they can confirm that you are, in fact, an instructor at an educational institution. Once everybody has an account, you'll want to start a project. And what this does for you is it creates a really nice set of resources to help you manage your project. So that you can put the timeline in here, you can track who's doing which peer review, all sorts of fabulous things. You can have discussions in the Conductor directly, because another one of the challenges that we found, and again, this is all about lessons learned and successes. One of the lessons learned is communication is hard. Emails get lost. If I'm talking to one person in the group, but somebody else needs to be looped in, now they're missing half of the emails. Email is messy. And so this is nice because you can have it all in one place and everyone can find it. And so definitely something to leverage. All right. Where have we gotten so far? You've put together your timeline. You've put together the outline of the book. And now you're ready to move the book into the LibreText platform. When you have an account in the Conductor, you want to start by creating a sandbox where everybody in the team has access to the same sandbox and can work in the book itself. If you're building a book from scratch, oh, excellent. I love having folks here that know all these things. Thank you. So the Conductor training is in the chat. I appreciate you putting that in there. So once you have your sandbox, you want to go back to the outline of the book that you built in your Google Doc and just transfer it in all at once. And the remixer makes this super easy. Basically, you open your sandbox and you use these buttons up at the top to add new chapters, new sections. You can move things around. It renumbers everything for you. It's a beautiful tool, super cool to use. I prefer to build the entire framework of the book first before anybody starts writing, just so that we have a big vision when we're on our page, we can back up and make sure we understand where we are in the framework of the book. And so just build the entire framework in the remixer. If you're bringing in resources, the remixer lets you do that as well. So if this is my sandbox on the right here, the green is the pages that I've added. If I want to bring in other pages, so remember when you were looking for resources and you have your spreadsheet, if that resource is from LibreText, it's really easy to bring it into your book. You find the book itself, right? So you go to the bookshelf, find the library, find the book, find the page, and you can transfer over either an entire chapter or individual pages, and it's a matter of clicking and dragging. So you want to do that as well. If you found resources that are not in LibreText, you can ask to have them harvested. Now, you don't want to harvest like little bitty pages. I found this one page here and this other page there. But if there's an entire book that you found that you want to adapt and it isn't in the platform, this link here, the harvest request, will is how you're going to get it in the platform. So, and then once it's in there, you can harvest it from there. You can move it into your Sandbox. All right. So at this point, we've built the outline of the book. We've got the framework in place. We have any pages moved over that we want to adapt. And now we're ready to start writing. The next conversation you want to have with your team is, what are our pages going to look like? And again, this is all about consistency so that when you have multiple people writing the book doesn't feel disjointed. And so you want to build a template for your page. This is a template that we're using for one of the books. We've decided everybody is going to have learning objectives at the top. And this blue box here is actually a box that you can create on the page itself, which makes it really nice. It's labeled learning objectives, and so it's really easy to use. Okay, so we've decided everyone's going to start with that box. Then they're going to have an overview paragraph. Then they're going to write the thing. If they want to have notes, they're going to use a notes box, and we're going to end with summary. And then references, we're still debating if we want references or not. But this template is really important, and you want to work it out with the team. So don't just come in and say, this is going to be our template, because if people don't understand why, like why am I writing an overview, it won't come through as cleanly. Okay. Questions so far? I should have mentioned, if you have questions, I tend to talk really quickly. You're welcome to type them in the chat. I'm going to take a breather, let you kind of absorb the information and ask questions if you have them. You're also welcome to unmute if you don't want to type in the chat. That's awesome, Delmar. Thank you. Yeah, if we have templates for the team, and each team is going to want a different template, it would be great if we can have that be some sort of default page in their book. Currently, what I'm having them do is I have a page called template, and they just cut and paste it into their page. It works fine. It's easy. But if it's already a default, that would be even easier. And easier is always better. Okay. So if nobody has questions, I'm going to move on. The next part of this is just a reminder to stay connected. You want to set up regular meetings, so once a month, once every other week, whatever it might be. Have a clear agenda for each meeting, so don't just kind of show up. You know, say this meeting we're each going to state where we are, right? So kind of an overall, where is everybody meeting? Or this meeting, we're going to focus on chapter 1 and see if anyone has questions about that. Whatever it might be, have a clear agenda and regular meetings. Have additional communication strategies. So email is great. Like I said, the Conductor is cleaner, so that's a great place to have those conversations. If you're doing a lot of work quickly, something like Slack or Teams or Discord or whatever it might be, kind of the more instant discussion forums is also a good option. So quick refresher, we've identified our timeline. Our timeline includes regular synchronous meetings. We've identified the overall structure of the book, built that structure in through the remixer, brought in any external resources, built a template for each page, and now you write the book. Okay. This step is both the easiest and also the hardest, right? So I've got nothing on this slide because all the hard work really has been done. When you're talking about co-writing, the hard part is keeping everybody on the same page. On the other hand, to just say, write the book, makes it seem like that's just going to happen magically. And this is really where you're going to spend the most time as individuals. So this image just, it's how I feel about this slide, right? If you've seen this meme, how to draw an owl. Step 1, draw 2 circles. Step 2, draw the owl. And that's kind of what I feel like I'm telling you. Now you write the book. But really all the hard work has been done. And those foundational steps, so we're starting a new round of projects that are going to take about a year. And all of the foundational steps that I've been talking about are going to take the first 2 months, probably, out of a full year, right? So a significant portion of the writing is setting up everything that I've been talking about. Because if you've got a solid foundation, the rest is a lot easier. This is a lesson learned. When we had people just write and then try to get them to connect and to see where everything was, it was a mess. So you don't want to do that. Additionally, as I mentioned, you want to make sure you're doing peer reviews throughout the process. This is going to help you keep consistent voice and content. Make sure each writer is flipping through the book regularly. And I have meetings set up every couple of months where the ask is everybody read through the book and kind of summarize if there are places in the book that feel off, too detailed, not detailed enough, the voice is significantly different, whatever it might be. And every 3 or 4 meetings, so every couple of months, that's what we talk about. How's the overall book feeling? But also each writer has a couple of chapters that they do an in-depth review for. And the first and second reviewer are always different. So you've essentially had 3 people working in depth on every single chapter. The reviews, the way we've been setting these up is a Google Doc or email for larger comments. Things like you missed this entire topic, or these 2 pages should be rearranged, or anything that's kind of bigger. We put those on a document or an email. I am curious to see what the reviewer tab of the Conductor does that might help with this step. We've also been leaving notes on individual pages. So if it's some minor thing like, this is a better word to use here, you don't want to be trying to write that in a document. And so we have folks just say that and highlight it in some red so that we know that isn't part of the book, that's a comment about this page. And then the author goes back and addresses any of those comments. Folks can also make changes. So if it's a minor fix, right, a typo, whatever it might be, that's really minor and you don't think that it's going to be something that the other person is going to contest, just go ahead and make the change. One of the really interesting pieces of working with co-created projects over time is, and this is part of working in the OER world in general, is you kind of let go of this feeling of it has to be mine. It's really nice when you can say, this is the resource, fix it however you like. And so once we get faculty over that feeling of, I can't touch your stuff, things go a lot smoother. So it's worth having that discussion early on, that it's not that chapter 2 is my chapter and you're changing it. It's this book is our book. I started the draft of chapter 2. Now you're changing, you're editing it. It's a different approach and a really important one to address early on so that people aren't hesitant to make changes. And that's something else we've seen that can be problematic, is if folks want to be too nice, then the book feels clunky, right? We need to be honest. Don't want to be mean, but we do need to be honest. And so just letting folks make the edits without feeling concerned is important. One of the nice features of LibreText that helps with this is only one person can edit a page at a time. So I'm not worried about if I'm editing and somebody else edits, one of those overriding the other. This is an issue with some of the other platforms that we were looking at. If somebody's editing a page and you click edit, you get, I think, a pop-up that says somebody else is already here. So that's a really helpful thing, so you don't have to worry about writing over each other. The other nice feature is if I edit somebody's page and they decide that that was a terrible edit, I didn't like what you did, it's just 2 clicks to get back to their version of the page. And you can see both my version and their version, and we can kind of point by point decide which piece we want to keep and which we want to remove. And so that's the other thing I try to tell folks in my groups is, don't be afraid. It's not going to get lost. Even if you delete a whole big chunk of the page, we can always get it back. And I think that can be really helpful to not be too worried about losing stuff. And you'll also want to build in accessibility and licensing reviews. This depends on how well-versed your group is. So in our case, we have groups of faculty where a couple of them may be really well-versed in licenses and accessibility, and a couple are not. And so we have individual people whose job it is to go through the entire book and check that the licenses make sense to the best of our ability, and to check that the book is accessible to the best of our understanding. Right? So those 2 things are really important, and it's nice to have one person on the team that's going to take on that responsibility. Okay. And if you want to learn more, I have a link here to the blog where you can find the sessions on the Conductor, other sessions on building in LibreText, so you can learn those details. My goal here was really more to talk about the co-creation part. I didn't get too much into the platform, but this is where the official part of the presentation ends, because I wanted to leave time for questions. If you've tried to co-create with folks and you're finding areas that are challenging and you want to brainstorm ideas, if you have questions about any of the resources that I've shared, I think, Jennifer, these slides will be shared on your platform somewhere, correct?
Yes, we can distribute them for you.
Excellent, thank you. So we'll have the slides posted because all of those links take you to the resources that I was sharing. So if you have questions about that, if you want to delve into the LibreText platform, we can do that as well. We have Jennifer here who can help us through that. All right, questions? Has anyone tried co-creating and have additional suggestions? It's not easy. We've learned that. There's a lot of advantages, but it is not easy to track that many people. Do I have any lessons learned from the organization? So the Google folder organization? Oh, yeah. I think that it's interesting. What we've added every year moves us earlier and earlier in this presentation. So my very first slide was creating a Google folder. That's a new thing I've added this year. The tracking sheet was something we added last year, right? And so what we're learning is you have to start organized earlier and earlier. I waited too long. For the first couple of rounds, my approach was start writing, and then we'll see where we are, and then we'll have these discussions, and that was a disaster. Don't do that. It feels like you're being very rigid, and early in the process, it's going to feel too rigid. Like I'm not ready to decide on all the chapters exactly right now. If you wait on having that discussion, it gets messier later. One of the things that we have done though, so the spreadsheet I showed you where the chapter names, I separated the name of the chapter from the chapter number on the far left because we have been reorganizing chapters, right? So we switched chapters 4 and 8, whatever it might be. And it's easy enough to do, right? Again, one of the beauties of the LibreText platform is if you go into the remixer and you decide that, chapter 4 and 8 really need to be swapped, it makes a lot more sense to switch them. You can just go to the remixer, drag chapter 8 up, and everything gets renumbered. So it's really easy to do that later, but you want to start with a framework. So start start rigid and then get more creative from there, I guess, is my biggest lesson learned. And be super organized. I am not nearly organized enough. That's why I started with the shout out to Suzanne. She's taught me a lot of really important things about project management. You know, I don't think, oh, other folks in the OER, so the OER initiative that I'm a part of, we have 2 project facilitators, that's me and Suzanne, and we oversee, I think this year we're overseeing a total of 12 projects. Next year it's going to be 8. And we try to get everyone to follow this structure. Some of the projects tend to want to follow their own path, bless them, and they tend to have a harder time. So we're getting also more and more, I don't know how to say it, but we're being very clear that you want to get organized. So not everyone follows this process, and they're generally sorry if they don't. Sound really mean. We're a lot more supportive than I sound right now. Yeah, and the Conductor, so I only recently learned about the Conductor like last week, and I've already got on my schedule the session tomorrow. I think that is going to clean up a lot of our workflow, because right now it's pretty clunky to have pieces happening in Google Docs and pieces happening in LibreText. And if we can bring all of that into one platform, that would be amazing. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to that. That is, and this, by the way, is the other reason we chose LibreText as our platform of preference, is because they're always kind of adding these pieces that make it easier and easier for us to do our jobs. Yeah, definitely after this week. This week is kind of full. Hopefully everyone's having a lovely Open Ed week. Lots of amazing sessions. Questions? Anything you want to see? Any particular part of the process?
As Suzanne mentioned, you can all unmute yourselves if you don't want to put questions in the chat.
And if you have specific of your own project that you'd like help with, like I said, after 3 years and I don't know how many, a couple dozen projects, I'm happy to help you work through any of your challenges. I'm also going to put my email in the chat. I realized I didn't put that out there. If you'd like to connect about any of this, please feel free to email me. Oh, very good question. LibreText, I believe, is open to everybody. It's not a US only platform. It's truly open. And free, and all of the other resources that I talked about, like the H5P integration, the homework system integrations. Oh, and I forgot to mention, it also has a way to print the book, create a PDF. All of those features are all free for everybody. Yep, it is being recorded and it'll be posted along with the slides. To get involved, I had earlier a link to a request an account. Jennifer, if you could put that link to request an account in the chat as well. You can get an account and basically you can go in and start playing around with the platform. But yeah, there are videos on the YouTube channel on how to do things. I would encourage you to watch those. There's a bit of a learning curve, as with any new platform. So be prepared for a bit of a learning curve, but once you get past that, the sheer power of the things you can do is pretty awesome. Yeah, Lisa, thank you for seconding that. Organization is key.
Suzanne, do
Oh,
you,
wow, almost. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, do you maybe want to go into the site and show them on the actual LibreText platform what some of this looks like? Or am I putting you
Yeah.
on the spot here?
No, absolutely. I'd love to. And in fact, maybe I can show off my book, giving me leave to share. So this is a book that I co-created with another biology faculty at my college, human biology. And yeah, so I need to log in. So you'll notice the book itself is visible to everybody, right? So this is the same link we give our students. They can click through. So this is, I'm in a chapter. You can see here the different pages in the chapter. And if I click into a page, you're going to find most of them have very consistent structure. If I wanted to go in and edit, I would just log in. And edit. And what you'll notice when I mentioned there was a bit of a learning curve, once you get past it, it's really not that different. Like if you have worked in any content editor, it's all the same. Right here is your heading levels, bold, italics, bullets, all that sort of thing. But what's really cool about the platform is this box here, right? You can see it's shaded. It's also got headings for accessibility, which is hard to do. If you don't know code, to get a div box is not easy. But what you can do here is you just click on boxes and you can decide what kind of box you want. Is it an example, a note? This is the learning outcomes box that I was showing you earlier. And so you can just choose, and I think each one of these comes with not just a custom title, but in some cases, an icon. This one is a note box. So when we first created it, this up here said note, and you can just edit that to the title of the box that you want. And there's also all sorts of, so in the templates, this is where you can add the interactivity. So lots of really amazing things to add. Just a matter of knowing where to find them. Yeah, anything folks want to see? Oh, Fauzi, that's a very good question. The difference between LibreText and Pressbook. So when we first started our projects, like I said, we gave folks the option of using whatever platform they liked. So we moved away from Pressbooks for a couple of reasons. The editing component is fine, but they have a free version, which allows you to do kind of basic things. But anytime we wanted to do anything like add H5P or anything like that, you have to upgrade to the enterprise version, which is way beyond the price that we could afford. And we also didn't want to work in a platform that's going to be kind of a freemium platform, right? The freemium model is it's free for some things, but then if you want anything kind of cool, that's going to cost you. And so we didn't really like that approach. With LibreText, everything is free, all of it. So H5P is free, and they're adding all sorts of new fabulous sorts of things like 3D interactives, stuff that's well beyond what I know how to work with. And all of it is always free. At no point do you have to pay to get to use anything. So and it's an open source platform, right? So if we're in the OER space, the idea of open source is really important. Yeah, do you want to unmute and ask a question?
Hello, Suzanne. Hello to everyone from Beirut, Lebanon. And my name is Fauzi Baroud. Yeah, well, actually, Suzanne, I have I'm doing some training for, I'm based in Lebanon, but I'm doing some training for educators now with UNESCO from Egypt and from Libya, from higher education. Well, last session, and the topic is open textbooks, how to create open textbook and stuff like that. So I covered the LibreText, and you're absolutely right. You know, when I was gonna show them the H5P interaction and what they can do and how they can integrate, then it's not available for free. You're absolutely right. That's why my session actually tomorrow, this is the last session, last workshop, it will be about LibreText, you know. I'm not an advanced user with LibreText. For example, the co-authoring thing that you have described today, it was very useful for me. And hopefully tomorrow I will do a good job in in talking about LibreText, you know, and all the good stuff within LibreText. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah, if you put the time of your session in the chat. If I'm available, I'd love to be there. Oh, and even better than that, yeah, if Delmar or Jennifer are available, that would be amazing. Not putting y'all on the spot, but yeah. And also, what is the session called so that we can look for it?
Well, here we go.
Oh, perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, the thing is, you know, the time between your time and our time is gonna be difficult for you maybe to. I would love, you know, that if somebody can, you know, be present. But actually, what I'm planning to do, Suzanne, and since Delmar is with us also, I will have an international webinar at the end of this training, by the end of this month, where, you know, I invite international speakers so that, you know, those educators will listen and will know more about, you know, what's happening in this OER thing and open textbook from international speakers. So I would love, you know, to invite you to this session, you know. Hopefully it's going to be at the end of this month.
I would love to. I'd love to be there, and I'd love to connect.
Yeah. Excellent.
Yeah,
إذا الله راد. إذا الله راد.
Inshallah. Yeah.
Inshallah.
I'm just for background, since there's only a few of us here. I'm Lebanese, so I'm having a special bit of love for having a fellow Lebanese with us.
Thank you, Suzanne.
Other questions? Oh, very good, Jennifer. Thank you. I forget about that. So yeah, info@libretext.org is a great place to ask general questions, and they get back to you quickly, which is amazing for such a big platform. We've had a couple of projects use H5P, which I think is the piece that we were most excited about because it's that interactive component that's really useful for students. And you know, H5P is open, but you have to host it yourself, and that was always a barrier for us. So that is what I'm personally most excited about. I haven't used any of the other fancy features. I know some of our math folks have, and I do have some of the 3D interactives for, not interactives, but the 3D models for like DNA and stuff like that. But no, I've stuck to all the simple stuff. One of these days I need to up my game and really make it a more interactive book. Oh, very good. Yeah, actually I have the link to our, what do you call it? Our collection in Commons. See if that comes up. Ah, very good. Thank you. So these are all of the OERI books that we've built. And there's quite a lot of them. Oh, really? There's more. Excellent. And there's more coming. And our current round of books are going to be ready in June. So in a couple more months, there's going to be like 20 more. Oh, very good questions. And these are the reasons I'm glad Jennifer and Delmar are here. So to author as an instructor, is it necessary for your institution to also register with LibreText? And the answer is no. You can register as an individual instructor and have access to all of the resources. There are like ways to get your institution to have its own like institutional page, so kind of do next level stuff, and that is an option. But if you just want to create your own book, you don't need to have your institution join anything. Other questions? That's the one, the consortium. Yeah, so if your institution wants kind of next level benefits, they can join the consortium, but it's not required. All right, well, we are at time. I'm happy to hang out and answer questions, brainstorm ideas, but if you don't have any other questions, I'll let you get back to the rest of your day. Thank you for being here.